Hello everyone, today we will do the dictation practice of exercise 18, 19 and 20. The speed will be 70 words per minute. For doubts, you can write in comment box and you can like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel. So get ready everyone for the dictation practice of exercise 18 first. Let's begin. Mr. Speaker Sir, for realization of the goal of housing for all and affordable housing, a tax holiday has already been provided on the profits earned by developers of affordable housing. Also, interest paid on housing loans is allowed as a deduction to the extent of 2 lakh in respect of self-occupied property. In order to provide a further impetus, I propose to allow an additional deduction of up to 1,50,000 for interest paid on loans borrowed up to 31st March 2020 for purchase of an affordable house valued up to 45 lakh. Therefore, a person purchasing an affordable house will now get an enhanced interest deduction up to 3.5 lakh. This will translate into a benefit of around 7 lakh to the middle class home buyers over their loan period of 15 years. Non-banking financial companies play an increasingly important role in India's financial system. With the enhanced levels of regulation they are subjected to by the Reserve Bank of India, there is a need to provide greater parity in their tax treatment vis-a-vis scheduled banks. Currently, interest on certain bad or doubtful debts made by scheduled banks and other financial institutions is allowed to be offered to tax in the year in which this interest is actually received. I propose to extend this facility to deposit taking as well as systematically important non-deposit taking NBFCs also to promote the International Financial Services Center in Gift City. Series of measures have already been taken in the past by this government with a view to further incentivizing the IFSC. I propose to further provide several direct tax incentives to an IFSC, including 100% profit linked deduction under Section 80LA in any 10-year block within a 15-year period, exemption from dividend distribution tax from current and accumulated income to companies and mutual funds, exemptions on capital gain to category 3 and interest payment on loan taken from non-residents. I propose to give relief in levy of securities transaction tax by restricting it only to the difference between settlement and strike price in case of exercise of options. India's ease of doing business ranking under the category of paying taxes showed a significant jump. Mr. Speaker, sir, more than 120 crore Indians now have Aadhaar. Therefore, for ease and convenience of taxpayers, I propose to make PAN and Aadhaar interchangeable and allow those who do not have PAN to file income tax returns by simply quoting their Aadhaar number and also use it wherever they are required to quote PAN. Pre-filled tax returns will be made available to taxpayers, which will contain details of salary income, capital gains from securities, bank interests and dividends, etc., and tax deductions. Information regarding these incomes will be collected from the concerned sources such as banks, stock exchanges, mutual funds, EPFO, state registration departments, etc. This will not only significantly reduce the time taken to file a tax return, but will also ensure accuracy of reporting of income and taxes. The existing system of scrutiny assessments in the income tax department involves a high level of personal interaction between the taxpayer and the department, which leads to certain undesirable practices on the part of tax officials. To eliminate such instances and to give shape to the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister, a scheme of faceless assessment in electronic mode involving no human interface is being launched this year in a phased manner. To start with, such assessments shall be carried out in cases requiring verification of certain specified transactions or discrepancies. Cases selected for scrutiny shall be allocated to assessment units in a random manner, and notices shall be issued electronically by a central cell without disclosing the name, designation, or location of the assessing officer. The central cell shall be the single point of contact between the taxpayer and the department. This new scheme of assessment will represent a paradigm shift in the functioning of the income tax department. Mr. Speaker, sir, our government has taken a number of initiatives in the recent past for the promotion of digital payments and less cash economy. To promote digital payments further, I propose to take a large number of measures to discourage the practice of making business payments in cash. I propose to levy TDS of 2% on cash withdrawal exceeding 1 crore in a year from a bank account. Further, there are low-cost digital modes of payment such as BHIM, UPI QR code, Aadhaar Pay, certain debit cards, NEFT, RTGS, etc., which can be used to promote less cash economy. I therefore propose that the business establishments with annual turnover more than 50 crore shall offer such low cost digital modes of payment to their customers. Stop. Now translate this exercise in English and check from the screen. Get ready for the another exercise, exercise 19. Sir, the entire concept of the goods and services tax is actually an indirect tax, and an indirect tax is a regressive tax, and a regressive tax has been explained. All of us know what a regressive tax is and how it burdens the poor much more, and it should not burden those people for whose welfare we are all supposed to work for. Now, you consider this situation. In India today, the direct tax component revenue in our country today for our country's resources is 37%, 62% already comes from your indirect taxes. That is, the people are burdened by that amount. In the last budget, which the Honorable Finance Minister presented, he said indirect taxes have been hiked to the tune of around 20,000 crores of rupees, while the direct taxes have been reduced by over 1,000 crores. What are you doing? Enriching the rich and impoverishing the poor. Now, in this sort of an atmosphere, compare our 37% of direct tax collections with the other emerging economies in South Asia. Look at Indonesia. They have a direct tax revenue component of 55%. Look at South Africa, part of your BRICS. They have a direct tax revenue component of 57%. We have it at 37%, and on top of that is the GST. If you do not have a cap on its limit, a limit on the GST, it will be an increasingly regressive tax that will impose greater and greater burdens on the people. Now you have worked out. I don't want to name him, but those of us who have read the Chief Economic Advisor's report would think that they are very reasonable economic arguments. Those are economical sound arguments that have been put in there. The revenue neutral rate was estimated, and that has already been explained in the House to be 15% or 15.5%, whatever that exact figure is. But remember, sir, there was an R&R calculated in 2014, which we was then very strongly opposed, and that R&R that was calculated then was 27%, 13% as the central taxes, and 14% as the state taxes. This is a very heavy burden on the people who are also hit by high inflation. Now, if you have this sort of an R&R, and on top of that you have the bands, you may have bands less than that, but then a tax rate of around 24% or 25%, that will just cripple a vast majority of our people. I have said this before. What is the reality today? It is reported that in the last 1 year, the number of US dollar billionaires in our country have increased from 100 to 150. Wonderful. May that tribe increase. So, as your own saying goes, that is Shining India. What does the 2011 economic data report show? In 90% of Indian families, the bread earner of the family earns less than rupees 10,000 a month. These are the two Indias you already have. On top of that, if you get a regressive tax regime, you are only widening the gap between the two Indias, and that is not the spirit which our constitution enjoins us to come to this house to legislate. Therefore, I think it is absolutely necessary that instead of a revenue neutral rate, you start considering what I would call a fair revenue rate. I am seriously suggesting to the Honorable Finance Minister that this be considered as a fair revenue rate and to work on it. By the time you bring the GST bill, you can actually work on a fair revenue rate for the states concerned, and then you have a cap on it. So that assurance must also come when the GST bill is brought before us. How it will be brought, I will come to later. So when it is brought before the house, that should be taken into account. The third major point that I have, sir, is concerning the concrete amendments. There are certain problems in the concrete amendments which the Honorable Finance Minister has moved. In the third amendment, for instance, of clause 9, he suggests three categories. He has given 1A, 1B and 1C. Sir, 1A says the amount apportioned to a state under clause 1 shall not form part of the consolidated fund of India. Yes, because it has to be shared. So once it goes in there, then you and I will have to sit again to apportion it. It is correct. The second amendment is also by the same logic. Okay. The third amendment, namely 1C, says where an amount collected as tax levied by a state under Article 246A has been used for payment of the tax levied under Clause 1. Stop. Now translate this exercise. Get ready for the another one. Exercise 20. It would be useless on my part to attempt to deal at any length with the many nightmares and imaginary visions of a widespread plan for the extermination of Muslims in the states which the Prime Minister of Pakistan has conjured up in the broadcast made from his sick bed. One might expect hot temper in a state of frenzy, but the state of delirium which the broadcast most certainly exhibits cannot but have filled his listeners and readers with amazement and apprehension. History has been dishonestly and mischievously distorted. Freebooters and looters have been dubbed as liberators and heroes. The wanton and mass tragedies inflicted by the raiders on the innocent, helpless, and peaceful inhabitants of villages in the Happy Valley have been treated as matters of no consequences, and what is virtually an elaborately planned, fully equipped, and professionally directed invasion from a friendly territory has been presented as a rising of the people against the torture and oppression of a ruling race. The grim tragedy which overtook the British members of a religious order at Baramulla, the details of which are too heartrending to tell, and the murder in cold blood of European families, there are sufficient to reveal the true character of the so called missionaries of liberation and emancipation. The ceaseless, hysteric outburst of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, together with the known composition of these raiders and their equipment, fully bear out the interest taken by a neighboring state, the leaders of which, more than anyone else, have constantly harped in the past on the independent character of the states after the lapse of paramountcy and the entire freedom of choice in the matter of accession vested in their rulers, as if Kashmir alone was not an adequate target for the venomous shafts of the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He has encompassed within his indictment. The states of India are states that have acceded to the Indian Union, a state with which again Pakistan has friendly relations. As usual, however, facts have either been ignored or given a twist to suit the picture which the Prime Minister deliberately intended to overdraw. I have no doubt that but for the poison of hate and the communal virus which had been injected into the body politic by the League, this virus will be suicided for the peace between the two neighboring countries. After that protrusion of the United India. Nevertheless, Meos in thousands have returned to these states, and those that wish to go neither persuasion nor arguments would succeed in restraining, for they know the destruction of non Muslim homes and property which they have done. As regards the other states, I see no reason why the Pakistan Prime Minister should have, unless it were for his own ulterior ends, isolated them from the general flare up which has overtaken the East and West Punjab, and for which not one single community is to blame entirely. If the rulers for these states have not been able to prevent communal disturbances to a degree which would have prevented evacuation of Muslims, they share that discredit with other governments, including the Pakistan government, who so clearly failed to arrest the tide. The Pakistan Prime Minister talks of a widespread plan for the extermination of Muslims. Of course, it did not suit his purpose to mention the brutal and mass murders which have taken place in a state which was quite susceptible to their influence and which had some time ago acceded to the Pakistan Federation, namely the state of Sindh, where non Muslims have suffered untold losses in man, women, and children and property. But obviously, Pakistan holds that what is sauce for the Pakistan goose cannot be sauce for the Indians here. While non Muslims have been exterminated ruthlessly and without remorse from Pakistan and its neighboring states, producing an inevitable reaction in the Indian Union. The blame must rest with the latter, for the inhabitants of the latter have refused to submit to the fate of their co religionists in the former. It is this wrong logic on which the whole conception and policy of the government of Pakistan are based, and it is this wrong logic which the Pakistan Prime Minister has left to his appreciative audience and the world to judge. The Pakistan Prime Minister has also made the following statement when we asked the Indian government to protect the Muslims in these states. We were told that these events were the state's internal affairs and the Indian government could not interfere. Whenever this question was broached between the two governments, the limitations imposed by constitutional relationship on interference in the internal administration of a state were mutually recognized. The last time when this was formally placed on record was when representatives of the two governments met in Delhi. In fact, in the past, the league leaders have themselves been loud in their protestations of the absolute independence and sovereignty of the states on the laps of paramountcy, both in the internal and external spheres. Stop now, translate this exercise in English and check from the screen. Thank you.